ويضرب الله الأمثال للناس لعلهم يتذكرون ويضرب الله الأمثال للناس لعلهم يتذكرون للناس لعلهم يتذكرون
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, brothers and sisters. Welcome to another episode of Amthalul Quran, Quranic parables, where every night throughout this month of Ramadan, we aim to go through at least one parable from the Quran as part of our effort to gain more knowledge and gain close to the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you've just joined us, give us a like, a love, and do share the broadcast with your friends and family, inshallah ta'ala. As usual, I have my guest with me, Ustad Saf. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Ustad.
Assalamu wa rahmatullahi, Ustad. How are you this evening?
Alhamdulillah, very good, mashallah. Just realizing how quickly this month is actually going. It's almost, I think we're almost halfway through the month now. Subhanallah, it's going very, very quickly, this blessed month. So brothers and sisters, take this opportunity in this month to increase your ibadah, your worship, make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for khair in this dunya and in the hereafter, and opportunity for us to gain close to the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As usual, we start off with a reminder from the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the various virtues. So Ustad Saf, what do you have for us today?
All right, I've got a short hadith. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa kafa wa salatu wa salamu ala ibadihi alladhina astafa wa ala alihi wa sahbihi man tabi'ahum bi ihsanin ila yawm al-jazaa wa ba'd. Right, so this is a hadith in the Mu'jam al-Awsat of Imam al-Tabarani from Sayyidina Ibn Umar, Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma, that he said, سئل النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم من أحسن الناس صوتا بالقرآن؟ قال من إذا سمعت قراءته رأيت أنه يخشى الله عز وجل. So Sayyidina Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma, he said that the Messenger of Allah was asked, who is the best person, which kind of person has the best voice when they come to recite the Quran? So who is the best person whose voice, with the most beautiful voice when it comes to the Quran? And the Messenger of Allah replied that voice, that when you hear, or that person, when you hear their recitation of the Quran, you see the fear and the awe and the reverence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on their face or in their recitation. So من إذا سمعت قراءته أرأيته أنه يخشى الله عز وجل. So that kind of person, that's the best person with the best voice when it comes to the Quran. That they recite the Quran and they feel the khashiyah when they recite it.
Subhanallah.
So I thought I'd share that one from Sayyidina.
MashaAllah, that is a very beautiful narration. I have a narration from Sunan Ibn Majah, under the chapter of Babu Dhahabi al-Qur'ani wal-Ilm, the disappearance of the Quran and knowledge. So it was narrated that Ziyad bin Labid said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam قال ذكر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم شيئا. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned something, and then he said فقال ذاك عند هواني ذهب العلم. That it will be a time when the knowledge of the Quran will disappear. قلت يا رسول الله وكيف يذهب العلم ونحن نقرأ القرآن ونقرئه أبناءنا ويقرئه أبناؤنا أبناءهم إلى يوم القيامة. Subhanallah, he asked this question. He says, so I asked, oh Rasulullah, how can knowledge disappear while we read the Quran and we read the Quran to our children, and they read it to their children till the day of judgment. قال, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, ثكلتك أمك زيد إن كنت لأراك من أفقه رجل بالمدينة أليس هذه اليهود والنصارى يقرؤون التوراة والإنجيل لا يعلمون بشيء مما فيهما. Subhanallah. The Prophet ﷺ said, may your mother be bereft of you, Zayd. I thought that you were the wisest man in Al-Medina. Is it not the case that these Jews and Christians read the Torah and the Injil, but they do not act upon anything of what is in them? Subhanallah. So it's a grave warning from the Prophet ﷺ about our relationship with the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That reading the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not considered enough, and just reading the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could be considered a sign when knowledge has disappeared. And you know, obviously Ziyad, he was surprised by this, and he said, we read it and we read it to our children, and our children, they read it to their children until the day of judgment. How can we say it disappeared? And the Prophet ﷺ gave us the example of the Jews and the Christians. They read their scriptures, but they don't implement it. So this is a big warning for us as Muslims. Our relationship with the Quran is not only one of recitation or memorization, but one of implementation, taking the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, implementing it in our daily lives, in the lives of our family, in our community, and moreover, as a ummah, we need to implement this book, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has revealed in this blessed month. So, brothers and sisters, as usual, we will go to our parable and listen to the recitation, and then look at some of the lessons that we can learn. So let me just share the parable with everybody else. Let me share the screen. So this parable that we have today, it is a parable from Surah number 39, verse number 27. And just to remind everybody, just a couple of verses before it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, وَلَقَدْ ضَرَبْنَا لِلنَّاسِ فِي هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ مِنْ كُلِّ مَثَلٍ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَذَكَّرُونَ قُرْآنًا عَرَبِيًّا غَيْرَ ذِي عِوَجٍ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَّقُونَ. We have certainly set forth every kind of mathal, every kind of lesson for people in this Quran, so perhaps they will be mindful. Qur'anan Arabiyan, an Arabic Quran, غَيْرَ ذِي عِوَجٍ, without any crookedness, لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَّقُونَ, so they may become righteous. Immediately after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives this example. Let's listen to the recitation first, and then inshallah ta'ala we'll do a translation and we'll get into the details.
ضرب الله مثلا رجلا فيه شركاء متشاكسون ورجلا سلما لرجل هل يستويان مثلا الحمد لله بل أكثرهم لا يعلمون.
Sadaqallahu al-Azim. In the translation, Allah sets forth the parable of a slave owned by several quarrelsome masters and a slave owned by only one master. Are they equal in condition? Praise be to Allah. In fact, most of them do not know. So this is the parable for tonight, inshallah ta'ala. So let us go to the next slide and then we can go into the details of this parable. So as usual, I try to find some images that reflect the parable. And here, Ustad Saf, I've got on the top, you can see a person being pulled in several directions, trying to reflect rajulan fihi shuraka'u mutashakisun, a slave owned by several quarrelsome masters. So hopefully you like that picture there. And then we have, وَرَجُلًا سَلَامًا لِرَجُلٍ, and a slave owned by only one master beneath it. So hopefully those two images, they depict the imagery of the verse in question. What do you think?
I like them. Two new fresh.
Yes, got some fresh images. Yes, absolutely. So alhamdulillah. So brothers and sisters, again, the whole idea of these amthal is to really bring the conceptual to ideas to the realms of sensory reality. So we try to find images that actually can reflect that. And that's the whole purpose of parables, is to really make it very vivid in your mind that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he uses examples which everyone can relate to and understand in order to make a certain point. So let's go down to the details of our simile components. I mean, I've taken out the Arabic now because we know, hopefully we'll learn the liken, the mushabbah, the liken to, mushabbah bihi, the simile element, adawat al-tashbih, and then we got the simile feature, which is the wajhu shabah, the attributes or the angles by which you're doing the comparison. So tafaddal, Ustad.
Right, so bismillah. So we've got the mushabbah, the likened. So here there's two mushabbah. So in one instance is the believer, the monotheist, the muwahhid, and then obviously on the other side there's the polytheist. So we've got ضرب الله مثلا رجلان فيه شركاء متشاكسون. So and then رجلا سلما. So we've got two mushabbah, two people that are compared or likened, or two categories, sorry. And then we've got obviously the corresponding mushabbah bihi. So the polytheist, the mushrik, is the one who serves many mutashakisun, many shuraka, mutashakisun, quarrelsome, conflicting, contradictory partners, whereas the believer, the monotheist, the muwahhid, only is serving one master. So let's see how we're going. So we've got the liken to. We can do that in. The stars have got it there, I think, yellow. So one of the mushabbabi. So this is a part. This is a split tashbih, a split parable. So we've got two likens and two likened to. Two mushabbah and two mushabbah bihi. So one of the mushabbah bihi is the mushrik. The rajul fihi shuraka'u mutashakisun, and then we've got the rajul who is a slave owned by only one master, or rajulan salama. So the monotheist is compared to a person who serves one master, and the polytheist, the mushrik, is compared to a person who's at the behest of, or is serving two different or several different quarreling, conflicting, contradictory masters. As you can see, Ustad is highlighted there in blue. And then the simile element is not mentioned directly. So there's no kamathal, but we know it is a parable. We know it's a mathal because ضرب الله مثلا. Allah tells us it's a mathal. So the grammatical indicator is implicit. It's not explicitly mentioned. Now, the simile feature, the wajh al-tashbih. It's definitely multiple gods. It's not the same as worshipping true God. That's true. The other simile feature could be, you know, the fact of conflict, contradiction. So what Allah is essentially highlighting to us here is that think about it rationally. Can you rationally serve several different masters? And is that feasible? Is that possible? Or is it rationally better? Or is it more reasonable rationally to worship just one master? Obviously the analog is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being the master. And these shuraka are like the sort of so-called deities. So Allah is saying, think rationally. How can you serve conflicting masters? How can their wills be implemented? What if one wants to do something and the other one doesn't want to do something? You've got a contradiction and a tension now. So in the end, you'll never be able to satisfy or have your needs met by these multiple conflicting so-called deities or whatever it is. And Allah is asking us to reflect, Hal yastawiyan? You know, are these two the same? And obviously the question here is rhetorical. Allah knows the answer. But it's like, think about it. Surely it's a fact that these aren't the same. Alhamdulillah, bal aktharuhum la ya'lamun. And Allah often uses that phrase, you know, when it comes to people not reflecting on the method properly. They're not people who are applying their knowledge. They're not thinking about these things. So Allah says here, Alhamdulillah, so Allah is exonerating himself from any kind of shirk. So Allah is doing tanzih of himself. So all praise belongs to Allah only, and may He be exalted above whatever people associate with Him, Jalla wa ala. So that, you know, that's a simple sort of a simple way of looking at it. Like if I give another sort of just an analogy on the analogy,
Sure.
you try to have, you know, 3-4 different teachers trying to teach the same lesson to the same bunch of students, the same lesson. 3-4 teachers in the same lesson, same classroom, sorry. And they've all got different lesson objectives, lesson plans, and, you know, they've all got different activities that are conflict with each other. You're never going to get anything done. So it's a beautiful template. It's a beautiful template to show you how a conflict of wills, you know, you're going to get a conflict of wills. So it's not rational to be able to try and serve different deities. So yeah, sorry, Stan, did you want to add anything on that?
Yeah, I mean, just the hal yastawiyani mathalan. Here, are they equal in condition? A rhetorical sort of question. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the answer is obviously not. They are not equal. And if that's the case, then it leads you to the fact that, you know, you should not be worshipping more than one deity. You should be worshipping the one and true deity, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's without actually, you know, spelling it out, saying, you know, this one is correct or this one is incorrect. It's posed a question in such a way where you are forced to come to the conclusion, the only rational, natural conclusion, serving one master is better than trying to serve several masters. And I think, you know, people can, and you had the example that you actually gave of a, you know, 5 teachers trying to teach one person, you know, with 5 different lesson goals. It's going to just, that poor student not going to know who to listen to, and is going to be pulled in all sorts of direction. And there's an implicitly what there is there in terms of the psychological and the emotional state of a person who has several loyalties, conflicting loyalties. It creates a emotional and intellectual instability in that person. They are always in a constant state of being in contradiction and not knowing what is right, not knowing what is wrong, not knowing what is their purpose, what is their direction. it's a picture of confusion, absolute confusion. It creates. So I think this, this example, this mathal is very powerful. People can relate to that in everyday life, definitely. And if we just go to the next slide, and I think we've got some talking points that will probably help us, inshallah. Let me just move to the next slide.
And this is where we get, why are you putting up the slide?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to come on to point 3, which you mentioned there already. But
Yeah.
Point 1, irrationality of shirk, that's what we mentioned. That's very clear. It's just not intellectually something that can be established that makes rational sense. The other thing I was just going to say on maybe it can become a reflection point rather, is that Allah's using an example of shirk here, but a Muslim's got to be careful. Okay, a Muslim, for example, if we want to apply it to our case, may not worship other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course, a believer doesn't do that. But what a believer can do is substitute these idols for different viewpoints and worldviews. You see, different bases, different reference points. I think you mentioned there on point 3 already.
Yeah.
So that is going to pull him in different directions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the key things that, when I was thinking about that, the idea of having a single reference point. And I think this mathal really points to the fact having a single reference point, a single direction, in order for you as an individual, as a group, as a community, and as a nation to be productive. And when you have multiple reference points or multiple, especially contradictory reference points,
right,
then you're going to find confusion and contradiction and stagnation. It's a bit like, the image that we've got, you're being pulled in several directions because the ideas that you carry there are contradictory. And an Islamic personality is a personality that has a very distinct way of thinking and behaving and feeling based upon a single reference point. So when we are talking about, the Islamic personality or the Islamic character, we are talking about building that character on a solid, unified reference point where we have a clear goal as to what is our purpose in life. We have a clear, which is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have a clear understanding of what is the expectation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he has from us. Unlike the example that we've mentioned here, rajulan fihi shuraka'u mutashakisun, he belongs to several quarrelsome masters, right? Where we belong to one and the true master, the true Rabb, and we know what he expects from us, and he's given us a sharia with the commands and prohibitions, and there's no ambiguity in that. We know when we are pleasing him, and we know when we are displeasing him, and we know how to rectify our condition. So having that single consistent reference point, the aqidah of Islam, it creates that personality which is free of contradiction. But if we just step back one moment and think about the Islamic personality today, or the Muslim personality today, and look at the ideas which are taught in the education systems in our countries, or it's prevalent in the popular culture, we find there's a lot of contradictions. On one hand, we have the idea that Muslims are one ummah. We say, yeah, we're, al-Muslim akhu Muslim. Muslim is a brother of a Muslim. Every Muslim will say that. But at the same time, we have another idea that of national loyalty, right? So, Pakistani first, or Bengali first, or Arab first, or Turkish first, right? And what you find effectively, there's going to be contradictions arising when you have a a Islamic interest or an interest of the Muslim, and then what you have is your perceived national interest, which are at odds with each other, then you feel torn, you feel divided, right? You feel, unstable, right? Why is that? Because we don't have a single basis for all of our ideas. That's just a simple example to show the inconsistency.
Absolutely, definitely. That I think your point, the point that I was going to make, before it dovetailed into this third point, this third reflection point was, if Muslims, even though they don't take other deities other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but what can happen is, the danger is, they can take their scholars and their rulers, as the arbiter of what should be taken about, what should be understood about Islam, or what should not be understood about Islam. So, we see certain scholars who are part of a program to really reform Islam, obviously from state patronage, obviously from state support, and people are taking these scholars as references over and above what the hukum of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. So that's the kind of scenario that I was going to mention before I came onto the third reflection point, is that we're almost bordering on taking the word of scholars and making them lords.
Arbaba min dunillah.
Yeah, that's right. So it's very, very dangerous if we do that. So even though even though the ayah is explicitly mentioning shirk, but again, العبرة بعموم اللفظ لا بخصوص السبب. Can you see? We try and the words can be stretched to beyond the context in which the verse was revealed.
And
so
I don't think it's just that. It's more, you can sort of make it more broad, because what are the factors that influence people is tradition, culture, public opinion, what is in fashion, what is acceptable, norms, habits, so there's so many different things that pulling people in different direction, where Islam has this aqidah, this basis of la ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, which gives us a unified set of ideas about what is right, what is wrong, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, what is our goal, what is our purpose, why are we here in this world. And we find nations generally, from a viewpoint of thinking about change and being productive and being revived and so forth, is that when a nation adopts a single reference point, generally they would progress in one shape or form. Where if you look to the situation of the Muslim world today, Muslim world is like it's in a frozen state, absolutely frozen state, because we don't have a single reference point where we refer everything to in order to solve our problems. So yes, we're praying, we're fasting, and we're doing ibadah, we refer to Islam. That's fine. But when it comes to our national identity, then it's defined by nationalism. When it comes to our politics, it's defined by either socialism or democracy, or one of these forms of political system, whether it's monarchical or republican system, or whatever shade it may be. When it comes to the economy, it could be capitalist economic system, or a socialist economic system, or no economic system in some cases.
It's a pastiche.
Yeah, absolutely. So you find the Muslim world today, there is a big fundamental discussion that we need to raise in the Muslim communities, that we as Muslims, for us to progress, we need to be as mentioned in its example, or rajulan salaman li rajulin, a slave belonging to one master. The Muslims need to have one reference point which they can refer to for all of their affairs. As the Prophet ﷺ says, فَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. That if you differ or disagree with any of your affairs, then refer to Allah and His Messenger, i.e. to that single reference point. And once you have that single reference point, and there's a public opinion for that, then we can see the Ummah will take steps towards, progress and change. Otherwise, we're going to be in this, perpetual frozen state, and that is because of the contradictory ideas that we have in the in the Muslim world. I've got a really beautiful quote. It's rather lengthy, and Shaheed Sayyid Qutb in Fi Dhilal al-Quran, subhanallah, this man is incredibly eloquent. So I got this quote, and I have to read the quote because I think he just puts it so well. So for our viewers, so if our viewers can't see it, but at least you'll be able to hear it, inshallah. So can you see the quote now, Ustaz? You can, yeah. So he on this verse, he has a very beautiful commentary. He says, this parable fully depicts the truth concerning Tawheed and Shirk in every situation of life. A believer's heart filled with Tawheed is one that traverses this journey following clear guidance. His eyes are fixed upon a single star in the horizon and therefore does not miss his direction. He realizes that there is just one source of life, strength and provision, single source of benefit and loss, and a single source of bestowal and denial. So he straightens his steps towards this single source, seeking help from this single origin, holding with his hand a single rope anchored to a handle. He is satisfied with his direction towards a single goal and does not remove his eyes off it. He serves a single master and so does what pleases him and abstains from what displeases him. In this manner, his potential derive inner strength and remain united. He does whatever he does with his full vigor, since he is firm-footed on the ground turned towards the single Lord in the heavens.
SubhanAllah.
SubhanAllah is very beautiful. I mean, he's actually summarized the whole parable in an incredibly eloquent way. May Allah have mercy on him. I mean, brothers and sisters, hope you benefited from today's Amthal. This again, another powerful example from the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Parable in an incredibly, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this example, he really puts forward the compelling case for Tawheed to why we should worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone and not associate any partners with him. Brothers and sisters, Jazakallah khair for joining us tonight, and inshallah ta'ala with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we hope to return tomorrow evening with another mathal, another example or parable from the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So barakallah feek for joining, and from me, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
And from me, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.